Welcome to another week of Instigating with Clarkey and Ryan, brought to you by our great friends at Conway Furniture. That's Highway 86, east end of Listowel. Our friends at Conway, go see them. Our friends over at Larry Hudson Chevrolet Buick GMC, we'll hear a bit more from them later. And of course, the Listowel Squash Courts. Ryan Drury on here with Chris Clark, and we're very pleased to be joined by a very good friend of the show. He's on here a lot. It's been a while though, but given what went down last weekend, we needed to touch base with our baseball guy, and that guy is none other than Toronto Sun Blue Jays beat reporter and sports reporter Rob Longley. Rob, how are you, my friend?
Not too bad, man. It feels like it's a 5-day hangover, and I'm still recovering from last Friday. All that craziness. It was unbelievable. Like nothing I've ever seen in 35 years in this crazy business of ours.
Yeah. I agree. It was unbelievable. And Ryan, I'm glad you didn't get onto the ledge, because you weren't very happy last week, were you?
I wasn't happy. I think that Blue Jays Nation's not happy. And I think really what it boils down to is this. And Rob, I'm curious on your thoughts on how the fan base is reacting. You're kind of right in the center of it. I think the problem is this. It's not that Shohei didn't come here. We were all kind of prepared for that. And, Clarkey, you were trying to egg me on all day and, he's definitely coming and it must be true. And I said, I'm not going to believe it till I see him in front of the Rogers Center. And it turns out that he's going to LA. It's not that he didn't come here. Mm-hmm. It's all of the insanity that ensued with people definitely certain that he was. And then all of a sudden he wasn't, because Dragon's Den's Robert Herjavec was the one on the private jet. And Rob, you said you've never seen anything like this, a frenzy like this covering this team. What was it like in and around the city, and what are you seeing from this fan base right now? Because, man, there is a lot of finger pointing and blame going around. What's your take on it?
Well, first of all, we'll talk about Friday a little bit, and it was crazy. I think the first phone call I got from an editor at the Toronto Sun was sometime before 10 a.m. in the morning anyway, when John Morosi first tweeted out that Ohtani was on his way to Toronto, or that Toronto was a favorite, or whatever the first tweet was. And I tried to express my caution. I had just returned from Nashville the previous day, and I said, listen, the Blue Jays have made a very serious offer and are very much in this. I was able to establish that from sources, but until we know for sure that this dude is on his way to Toronto, I don't want to run with that. And that was just the start of it. It got crazier with people with the whole flight tracker thing, and I understand that that's sort of a Twitter or X phenomenon that people have glommed onto lately, that you can track planes, which you've always been able to do, but it becomes a thing. Like there's only one millionaire or billionaire in all of Ontario that flies to California regularly, so or there's none. So this has to be an Ohtani plane. And these were the types of things that I was trying to explain to editors. And I'm saying, let's stay on top of this. Let's be ready to pounce if he gets here. And let's have stories ready. Let's have all sorts of things ready. We had a front page ready with that he was going to be a Blue Jay. But let's not get out there and put that story out there that this is a done deal, because it isn't. From the people that I was talking to and the sources that I had. And then the whole craziness of there was people announcing on some well-respected people announcing that there was going to be a press conference at 6:00, announcing this at 5:00. That's not going to happen on a Friday. You're not going to get media from wherever they're living, me out in Burlington, the Japanese media, which is a huge contingent. It's not the way it's going to work. They're maybe going to get him to Toronto, but there isn't going to be a press conference until the following week at the earliest. So it just got sillier and sillier by the moment. And the more sillier it got, the more intense people became in trying to break the story or address the story. There was a number of media outlets that sent photographers or videographers out to Pearson. We had a photographer out to the Rogers Center, and I said, listen, he's not going to be going to the Rogers Center. The Rogers Center is one of the biggest construction sites in all of Toronto right now. Like if he's going to go, if he gets here and goes anywhere in the city, it isn't going to be to the Rogers Center at 5:00 on a Friday afternoon, Friday evening. So anyway, it got sillier and sillier. And then by the time, the closer that mythical flight got to Toronto, it had reached a fever pitch, only to end in a thud. And
It
I think
certainly did. Yeah, it did enter the thought. That's what I was saying. Like, there's no doubt when I can't remember the guy's name. He put that he is not on a flight to Toronto. It was like everyone was like, "What?" Like it was just such an excitement, and then boom, down. But who got used here? And we'll never find out, I guess. But did Morosi get used? Did the Blue Jays get used? Was this all Dodgers all the time, and everyone was just getting used to get up to $700 million?
It's possible. It's also possible that nobody got used.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that the Blue Jays offer was so good, and this is one of the things that I reported from Nashville last week, that I had a source that was very familiar with the offer that the Blue Jays put together, and that it was an all-in scenario, that Edward Rogers himself was involved in it, that it was sort of like a unicorn offer for a unicorn player, in that money that they were going to spend on Ohtani isn't necessarily money they're going to spend on other players, but it was a very serious and a very real offer. So it quite simply could have been a case of the Jays offer is so good that the Ohtani camp took it back to the Dodgers, and the Dodgers matched it or beat it or put together a package that Ohtani liked more and was enough to seal the deal. Now, so if that's the case, did the Jays get played? Not necessarily. I mean, it depends on how you want to describe it. They certainly would have helped increase the final offer that Ohtani got, and certainly were a part of this driving up the price. But the San Francisco Giants could have been a part of that as well. It might simply have been just the way that the negotiations unfolded, and that's what happens when you've got a strong agency and you keep everything close to the vest the way that they did. You're going to maximize it, because this thing took on a life of its own basically since free agency started in November, but certainly from the day that the winter meetings started last Monday in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, Saturday afternoon is when the news officially drops. Passan and everybody that people actually trust in the industry down south, it seems.
Well, Ohtani broke it. Yeah, Ohtani broke it.
Yeah, Ohtani puts it out on Instagram, and then the news starts flooding out, which left Jays Nation wondering, as Noel Gallagher once famously sang, "Where did it all go wrong?" But as you say, that might not be the case. It just ended up being that he wanted to go to the Dodgers, and probably did all along. There were some other offers out there that we've heard about that were either equal to or very similar to, including San Francisco. But now, as we step back and take a look at how this all went down, and whether people were used and people were feeding certain reporters information, like John Morosi is getting absolutely skewered on social media right now. But what's wild about all of this is now what's come out of the Ohtani thing is it's taken on a different life. It's okay. So Ohtani ends up signing in LA, but now there's this big argument about sports journalism and the right way to go about doing stuff. And there are a lot of people out there that are taking shots at people like John Morosi, whether you agree with that or not, that really ought to take a step back and have a gander at some of their past actions here. And we don't have to get into it, but Bob Nightingale wrote a post about how, he was slandering colleagues and saying, "Oh, this is not the right way to do it." And it's like, Bob, let's not forget a couple summers ago what you were up to on the Twitter machine. But as you take a step back, Rob, and look at this, it really gave us another glimpse into the danger of believing everything you read on the internet, eh?
Yeah, it really does. And I think it's a bit of an indictment to the culture of insiders. And Clarkey can speak to this as well. Not that there's anything wrong with insiders. Some of it just do it, let's say, in a more responsible way than others. There's a lot of people, a lot of the more well-respected insiders in hockey and baseball that, it's going to take more than one source before you go with something, especially something this big. So if you hear that Ohtani is on a flight, you got, before you just throw it out there, you've got to take a half a step back and say, okay, maybe I should follow this up to make sure there's a second source, and maybe even a third source, because not only is this the biggest story of the offseason in baseball, It's the biggest story in the sports world right now. I mean, this is a guy who's going to sign the biggest contract in the history of professional sports. It's, as I mentioned earlier, it's a story that's taken on a life of its own. So if you're going to throw something out there in a story that big, you better be pretty darn confident in your sources. And I mean, I suppose John Morosi was, and I guess that's why there's been some suggestions that perhaps he was played, but maybe there was somebody within the agency that suggested that he was on his way to Toronto. But yeah, so to your point, though, the whole idea of this insider culture. I read the Bob Nightingale piece, and I thought he actually made a couple of points in there that were relevant. I'm not so sure that I would have written a column like that, but it was perhaps a lesson to our profession that seems to be so plugged into what social media is going to say about us now that we want to be first before we're right. And I think that maybe maybe this is a lesson to take just a little bit of a step back, be careful of what you report. Not just on the big stories, but on any story. But you know, on these massive stories, boy oh boy, you better be right, or you're gonna deal with the consequences. Poor John Morosi hasn't posted much on social media since, and he's a nice man. I know him fairly well, and he's done a lot of work. But I have to believe that he would be wearing this pretty hard right now, and it'll be a very tough time for him because a lot of the criticism heaped his way would be unfair. I mean, there's certainly some reason for it because the story blew up in his face, but it would have had to have been very difficult for him to deal with the aftermath.
It's amazing what you think when you hear things and you try to tie things together. Like Kikuchi had a sushi restaurant booked too for a whole bunch of people. No. Let me finish. And then you start thinking, and then I'm like, I knew it. I knew that's why the Jays didn't get rid of this guy or send him to the minors last year, is because they wanted him on the roster to promise him a spot to get Ohtani here. And I figured it all out. But it is amazing what you think. And I guess there was no sushi restaurant booked, Ryan. Is that what you're saying?
Look, so this is where, off the back of what our friend Mr. Longley has said here, is where I hope that there's lessons twofold here. One, we need, for especially young people, I'd even argue even older people, to take media literacy lessons, because they're and reporters and trusted insiders, including maybe John Morosi in this case, were pulled in and sucked in by all these stories that started going viral based on tweets and hearsay from some guy on Twitter going, I'm tracking this flight, Ohtani's definitely on it. Then there's this whole rumor about Kikuchi and the sushi party. That was a rumor started as a joke on the TSN morning show first up by Carlo Coliacomo.
I heard it live.
That was a joke. That never happened. Like, that was never
they did get a text. They did get a text. And then Carlo laughed at it, right? From a random guy, like it could have been you, Ryan.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I know, I agree.
That's what I'm saying first. Media literacy needs to go through the roof. The amount of stupidity that I see around media and how it actually works and people's interpretation of how it actually works is beyond dumb. 99% of people have no clue how this industry works. And is that a problem too? Maybe, but the stupidity and the takes I see about how screwed up the most of us working in this industry are completely false. So that's a problem. And two, I think a lot of people need to take stock of where they're seeing a lot of this information and trying to corroborate it. Some guy on Twitter's tweeting about private jets and a sushi party, and people are buying it. And to John Morosi's credit, Major League Baseball's Twitter account retweeted all the stuff he was saying. Like, there are failures here, if you want to call them that. That might be a harsh word here, at multiple levels, all the way up to Major League Baseball's account. And on that note, Rob, I want to ask you about the contract itself, because a lot of people are pointing fingers at it, the structure of it, and the fact that there is a huge deferral of money here. Do you think that the way they structured this contract is fair? Because a lot of people are going, this just looks like the Ilya Kovalchuk contract that the Devils got in trouble for all those years ago. And that rich teams like the Dodgers shouldn't be able to do stuff like this because it gives them a competitive advantage. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, you can make that argument, except for you can't, because it's fair as defined by the Major League Baseball CBA. So
should it be?
No, it definitely should not be, and I would expect that it would be changed at some point. But I mean, who knows? That the offer that the Blue Jays may have put together could have been a similar style, right? When we originally started hearing about the deferrals, the story takes on a life of its own, because there was a suggestion that this was Ohtani's idea, because he wanted to make sure the Dodgers had money to spend to make the team good so that he could win all kinds of World Series. I suspect it was as much the Dodgers' idea as it was Shohei Ohtani's idea, but that's how it becomes a life of its own. It makes you wonder if rival teams that were in on the bidding, or not for that matter, would be upset about it, or are they smart enough in each of those front offices to understand that such a loophole, if you want to call it that, is available to every team if they want to use it. It's still a lot of money to be spent, but you see some of the estimates now that in today's real dollars, the 700 million is actually only 438 million or whatever it is. So it's a very clever offer that was concocted either by the Dodgers or by Ohtani's agency or by a combination of the tall foreheads in both departments to make it happen. But to your point, Ryan, is it right? No, but it's legal under the current structure of the CBA. And I suspect the reason that it's legal is because the union loves it, because their players just get richer and richer. It's, as we know, it's a sport without a salary cap. So players in baseball are compensated like no other sport, it feels like. And yeah, I mean, another whole entire thing about this thing is trying to wrap your head around the dollar figure. It's 951 million. It's almost 1 billion Canadian dollars for a baseball player for a decade. Like, how do you wrap your head around that stuff?
Yeah, it is definitely hard to wrap your head around it. And the other thing I kept wrapping my head around as I was talking to Ryan as this thing was going down, as much as I was excited about it, in the back of my head, and at the end of the day, it probably had nothing to do with these two guys, but I just kept saying Shapiro and Atkins can't make this happen. Like, they just don't have the capability of making it happen. At the end of the day, he wanted to play in LA, and that's probably what happened. But my question to you is, now they're 0 for 2, what's next? Where are we going to go? This team's not any better. It's the same team.
Yeah, I mean, in one respect, they may have gotten a little bit unlucky to go for the second strike, because the second strike, the one I'm assuming you're talking about, Juan Soto going to the Yankees, was something that they couldn't move on until the Ohtani thing was resolved.
Yeah.
The Yankees were smart enough to swoop in and get that deal done. Now, I'm not so sure that the Jays would have been able to put together, or would have been willing to put together the type of offer that the Yankees did to get Soto, or should have even, right? I mean, from all the reports we heard, it would have required Ricky Tiedemann to be a key part of that, and he is their number one prospect. We've already seen the blowback that the Jays got for letting their last number one prospect go to Arizona, Gabriel Moreno. So, but now that does lead into what's next, and I think that's the real. And I kind of addressed this in a column the other day. This is the real difficulty of the off season now. It's that neither of these things could be Ross Atkins or Mark Shapiro's fault, right? It's just the way it went down. They were never going to the Dodgers. Maybe they never would have had a chance at Juan Soto. To suggest and fans suggested that these guys say they're in on everybody. Well, of course they're in on everybody. They're going to kick the tires on everybody that they want. But they were in on these guys. Like, they're serious players. They have the resources to do it now. They have clearance from the highest levels of Rogers Communication to make this team a winner for all kinds of reasons. They've got a strong core in place. They've got more expensive tickets to sell next season. The competitive window is starting to close potentially with the future of Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. They have the resources to spend. Sometimes you just lose out on them, and it's not necessarily Atkins or Shapiro's fault. But the issue becomes now, no matter what they do, no matter what Ross Atkins do the rest of the season, off season, it's going to be a downer for Blue Jays fans. They're still going to call it a failure. They're still going to feel that it was not successful. And for a team that has holes to fill, I mean, that both in bodies and production, they got 4 or 5 spots they got to fill in that lineup. They've got offensive production that they've got to replace. I don't think that Atkins and Shapiro or this front office will get off the hook until this team proves that it's a better team, that they start strong, they win some baseball games, they prove that they're going to be competitive in the American League East, which obviously is going to be much more difficult thanks to what the Yankees have done. It's almost like no matter what they do, it's a blown off season, certainly in perception, fair or unfair. I suppose they're going to make a strong pitch at Cody Bellinger and maybe for Matt Chapman. The problem is those two guys are going to get paid heavily. They've had, and they're both represented by Scott Boras, the so-called super agent, who's been licking his chops all winter waiting for the Ohtani thing to get done so that he can start marketing his boys. And I think he's going to draw that out into January probably. And these guys are going to get overpaid. So does Ross Atkins want to overpay for Cody Bellinger off of one really strong year at the plate, which was followed by a poor year at the plate? Does he want to overpay for Matt Chapman, who, yes, was a leader in that clubhouse, yes, is an incredible defender, but showed us last year that he is not the guy at the plate that they hoped he would be. So what's next for them? I think that they might. I think the best option might be in the trade market, and we'll see how that unfolds. They will add a few players that are sort of in that in the bargain range, and one of the things that they've liked to do over the last couple of years is add players for 1-year deals. We saw it with Marcus Semien and a couple others over time, Kevin Kiermaier last year. So I could see a couple guys like that showing up. But I think that a good deal of the onus for Ross Atkins right now might be on the trade market.
I agree with you. And, you do look at the rest of this free agent class, and it's pretty top heavy, and it's light in terms of massive impact players. Cody Bellinger aside, and again, you noted on it, Rob, like, what are you getting? Are we getting close to NL MVP with the Dodgers Cody Bellinger from a few years ago, which he kind of revived last year with the Cubs? He had a very good year for the Cubs. Absolutely. Are you looking for some more power in terms of a guy that they never really replaced when they lost Teoscar, and a guy like Jorge Soler, who went off last year, had a very good year for the Marlins. JD Martinez, who's a little, on the wrong side of 30. There's some guys out there, but I agree. It's the trade market probably where they go. And I brought this guy up to you before, the very first name I thought of, because I don't think Kevin Kiermaier is going to come back. We could be surprised. Maybe he will. Yeah. He liked his time here, but I doubt he's coming back, which means you probably shift Varsho to center field, or maybe they go out and get a guy that I've always been a big fan of. We know that the Pittsburgh Pirates don't love paying people. Like, is there a deal on the table where they maybe go after a guy like Brian Reynolds, and maybe you package something up to also get David Bednar out of there?
Yeah, I mean, that would make a lot of sense, and that would be the type of deal that I think that they would look at. Of course, it would depend on what the price would be, but my hunch would be that they would go to organizations like that, right? Organizations like the Pirates or the Athletics, and try to make deals with clubs that don't want to pay guys, and maybe looking to shed payroll. And some of these franchises that have had their local television rights deals collapse too are going to be not going to have nearly as much revenue as they used to. So a smart GM, and you can say what you want about Ross Atkins. He's a smart dude, and he runs a pretty thorough baseball operations department. They do their homework, and they're able to identify opportunities that are out there. And these are the types of deals that they will be looking at. The question is, will they be able to make them happen? It takes two. And I think there is still a perception out there that it's pretty certainly on the free agent side that you might have to pay a little bit of a premium to get somebody to come to Toronto. I think that's a bunch of crap, as Kevin Gosman so eloquently said on X the other day. But it's still out there with some players. Once they get here, they tend to love it. But it does take some doing. So that's why you have to look at the trade market, and that's why you have to look at deals like you suggested, Ryan, with teams like the Pirates and maybe the A's and a couple other teams that are almost sellers already, and see what you can do. You might have to farm off some prospects or some draft picks to do it, but the price in dollar figures anyway might not be that dear.
Before we let you go, I just want to ask you about the Jays radio broadcasts, and obviously Ben Wagner getting let go, but it's bigger than that, and it just seems like Rogers doesn't want to travel anybody. And what my question is that a talking point when you're on the road, or when you talk to other reporters, or is radio dead everywhere like it seems to be in Toronto?
Yeah, it's a talking point for sure. Obviously, the decline of radio is apparent and well documented, and but I don't think it's dead yet. And to me, the baffling part of it to me is why Rogers would do it. Why a team that owns, or a company that owns the team, that owns the TV broadcasts, that owns the radio broadcasts, wouldn't want to use that vehicle for a minimal cost. And I will qualify this by saying that Ben Wagner was a good friend of mine, but Ben Wagner worked his butt off. Ben Wagner was one of the guys who worked hardest pregame, talking to players. He was very well connected with players and with coaches, and he got a lot of information. And I've listened to a fair number of his radio broadcasts. I listen to them when I'm covering games at the Rogers Center, just to he sees things that the press box in the Rogers Center is the worst press box in North American professional sport. It's so far now, right? So you can miss things from out there. So I listen to Ben just to stay on top of things. But the information that he brings to a broadcast is invaluable. But not only that, guys, it's like he's part of that broader Rogers team. So some of the information that he gathers is shared with Buck Martinez and shared with Shai Davidi and Ben Nicholson-Smith. And, he was a valuable teammate to those guys. I don't know what Ben made, but he wasn't costing them a lot of money in the big picture. And it's sad to see a guy like that lose his job, because I don't think they're getting rid of radio. They're not. They're going to announce his replacement in the new season. And there's been a lot of speculation as to who that might be. But I just don't understand why a communications company would do that when they're trying to package it all together. And it's a license to print money on the TV side. It's a license to print money on the ticket sales side. I have to believe that you wouldn't lose much money, if any, on radio if you did it properly. And I just don't understand it.
I don't either, because you can tell when a guy's looking at a monitor. And like Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph go through the same thing. It's like, this isn't a very good broadcast when you're watching a monitor. It's unfair. And like, as you said, Ben Wagner, like hardworking guy, did how many games on his own, which isn't an easy thing to do.
Most of them.
Give him exactly. They wouldn't even give him a co-host.
As I wrote,
it'll be interesting to see when Ben Shulman comes on.
Yeah, when I wrote the story after they decided to get rid of him, I basically said that they did everything they possibly could to set him up to fail, and he did. Like, he overcame all of that stuff, working on his own, working off of monitors. He did it because he worked his ass off. And, and what does he get for? And he carried them through the COVID year too, like that guy did a lot of work. Last year in spring training, he was there in spring training, and he worked every day. He went to every game, and he was doing stuff on the TV side. He called the spring training radio games on his own, from all these ballparks. And I don't know if you've been down there much for spring training, but the drive from Dunedin to Fort Myers is, 3 hours in the morning. It could be 4 or 5 hours in the afternoon with Florida traffic. And he never complained about it. He just worked his ass off and did a hell of a job. And this is what they do to a guy like that. It's not right.
No.
I agree, and Ben's a friend of the show. Of course, we've had him on a couple times, Clarkey, and I completely agree with every sentiment here. I think he's a fantastic voice in the sports world, baseball in particular. And I really hope that, and I'm confident that he will land on his feet with somebody, because somebody's going to be smart enough to snap up a talent like that. And what a shame that Rogers let somebody like that go, who I agree just worked so hard. And I listened to a majority of Jays games last season on the radio with Ben, and I mean, there's just few better, and it's a shame that this is the way it shakes out and people are treated this way. But anyway, I don't know. We'll see how it all shakes out in the new year. That's for sure. Rob, we really appreciate you doing this, my friend. Thanks for helping us try and move past this heartbreak of the summer of not Shohei here.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Let's do something before spring training for sure.
Absolutely, will do. We will catch up definitely before spring training with our friend, Toronto Sun Blue Jays beat reporter Rob Longley. Thanks to him. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, Clarkey and I, we got to continue talking about this because there's so many more layers to this. And of course, we'll touch on the Leafs, and we'll do our Conway Furniture Couch Potatoes of the Week as well, coming up next here on Instigating. Welcome back to Instigating with Clarkey and Drury, brought to you by our friends at Conway Furniture, Highway 86 east end of Listowel, our friends at Larry Hudson Chevrolet Buick GMC, the Listowel Squash Courts. And for anybody wondering, boy, nice new hat, Ryan. This courtesy of our friend Al over at the Listowel Squash Courts. As we know, I play him twice a week. I beat him again recently.
How'd you do? Oh, you beat him again.
I beat him again, yeah. I'm getting better. I really am. The pessimist that I am toward myself and my abilities.
That's the problem.
He's pretty good, dude. He's still landing. He's still landing some shots. I don't know. I think I'm pushing him. Because despite how down I am on my own abilities at most things, I can see the progress. I am getting better, and it's fun to play.
When you beat him consistently, then we'll go out there and I'll play left-handed or something just to.
Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But Al, what a great guy. The guy gets me a Christmas gift. Like, he had a bunch of goodies in there for me. He really didn't need to do that.
Does he have this great for me.
I don't know. You never go in there anymore, so I'm not.
Do so.
I'm just kidding. No, he got me this beautiful hat. He had a baseball team a couple years ago called the Misfits, of course. Great legendary punk band, of course, the Misfits, and it was fitting that the team and the hat says Misfits on it and is blue, because that's how we're all feeling now as Jays fans. We feel like we're the Misfits again. The inferiority complex rather is right back there because Shohei didn't want to come here. No. But thanks to Al for doing that. He really didn't. You know what was in there though that made me really stoked? He got me a Buck Martinez bobblehead. Of course, what? Buck Martinez just got
cleaning off his shelf, I guess.
Yeah, Buck, of course, getting the award from the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, the Broadcasting Award this year, well deserved. And then, he got me a bunch of other little goodies. Like, just what a great guy, and that's the type of person that's running the Listowel Squash Courts, and why you should probably go join up and go play, because it's a lot of fun, man. It's fun over there. Now, I want to just touch on, before we move into some other stuff, there's a lot to talk about. The Leafs, obviously, and a man named Mr. Tavares, who we're going to touch on that. I just want to quickly reiterate again, just people have got to be a little smarter out there with this social media stuff, man. Like the stuff I was seeing out there, just, my friend said that he saw a guy who knew a girl that said, and it's like, no, oh my God, you know what? And cousin Brad, who's, down there in Philly with Torts this year and doing well, loving it down there. They're going to play an outdoor game this year against the Devils. I'm excited about that. But, we've had cousin Brad on the show before, Brad Shaw. Good hockey coach. He deserves to be a head coach, and he might get an opportunity next year the way some NHL teams are playing. He said to us once, I always laugh at the term, this is Brad's words, not mine. He said, I always laugh at the term insider because none of these guys are in the room. Like, they don't really know what's going on behind the curtain. They get whispers and snippets, and generally, if guys are well liked and treat people well, people are a little more forthcoming and they get some information, but they don't truly know what's up.
And they're used. They're used. They can be used at times.
100%. And
really
I am totally in on the conspiracy theory, if you can even call it that Ohtani's agent, a former player, back in the day himself, might have floated some things out there. And look, I get it. Like John Morosi's taking it on the chin right now. I get it. I understand. Nightingale's done it before. Lots of them have. John Heyman, they've all thrown stuff out there that just did not end up being true. We all remember the Arson Judge tweet from last summer. Arson Judge is going to the Giants. He didn't. He was not going to the Giants. So we get it. We understand that. But there are times where there are people feeding people stuff and trying to gain leverage by doing so. The media is obviously a powerful thing. And if you can get something going out there, say you're an agent, say you're Scott Boras right now, and Cody Bellinger, again, it started up right after Ohtani. People were right back on this, Clarkey. Oh, did everybody see Cody Bellinger's girlfriend shared a picture on Instagram of the CN Tower? She did do that. But yes. I immediately was like, I'm not doing this again.
I know.
No. Cody Bellinger's not going to be a Blue Jay. I'll believe it when I turn the television on and Atkins is sitting next to him with a pen. I can't do this anymore. So I'm just saying, like, the amount of nonsense that you hear. And I also
holier than thou people out there who were like,
there's some people.
Give me a break. And like some Rogers employees, I don't even want to say their name, but some people who work for the team, for the Rogers company, give me a break. Like,
there's some folks.
They don't say anything all day and then they go, yeah, what Nightingale said. Yeah, that's right. Well, why didn't you tell us that? Why didn't the Blue Jays squelch the rumors? I heard that their season opener ticket sales on Friday went through the roof. So they're not going to say anything. They're making money. They're making money. People are buying and buying and buying. Good. They should plummet. And if they don't improve this team, those jokers should be gone.
Well, and there's the thing that I want to move on to next. We kind of touched on it briefly with Rob Longley, our friend from the Toronto Sun, longtime Blue Jays beat reporter. Here's the thing, and I've seen this take. You've seen it too, Clarkey. Where, okay, well, if they had $700 million ponied up for Ohtani, they better spend hundreds of millions on other guys. Listen, I don't need them to spend hundreds of millions on other guys, but what I do need them to do is flex the financial muscle that they clearly love to tout. Oh, we're in on guys. We can sign anybody. I need them to take some of that and use that in a different way, and that is the trade market. Keep in mind, you can trade cash in baseball. And there are a lot of teams out there with good players who won't want to pay them because of a big arb rights thing coming up, or the fact that they're almost out of their arb rights, which a guy like Brian Reynolds is. I love Brian Reynolds. I think he should be a Blue Jay. And remember last year at the trade deadline, a lot of people were saying David Bednar, one of the best closers in baseball, the Jays should go get him, take pressure off Romano. I'm fully into that. If you approach, and I know what the other side is, the Jays don't have a lot of quality prospects. Ricky Tiedemann is their top guy. They don't want to get rid of him. Okay, well, so take some of your financial clout then and either use international amateur bonus pool money that you have that a team like the Pirates would love, or some of your flat out cash and say, listen, we'll give you our fourth best prospect and $15 million cash. I'm just throwing numbers out there to get a guy like Brian Reynolds, because if you don't have the prospect capital to do it, then take some of this money that we keep hearing you've got in droves and droves piled up in the back room, not 700 million, but if it took 15 or 20 million for the Pirates to agree to taking a lesser prospect to give you Brian Reynolds and they take that raw cash, please, by all means, Ross, please do it, because I'm sick and tired that this can't go the other way. I don't blame them for not getting Ohtani. I get it. But I will blame them if all we keep hearing about is we've got financial strength. Rob said it. They have clearance from the higher ups, the very highest people on the Rogers board to spend money and improve this team. So you bloody damn well better do it then. And you better do it in a creative way.
Properly. Right.
Yes.
Don't just throw, stupid money at people.
No. And again, this free agent class is very mid, as the kids say. It's very mid. It's Bellinger and a bunch of guys. Now, that's just my opinion. Some good players out there, sure, but not guys that are going to be changed. And third base is an issue, Matt Chapman's a black hole at the plate. Love the defense. He's one of my favorite players. I don't want him making 20 plus million. Let somebody else give him that. Go out and flex your muscles. Go get a Brian Reynolds. Call up Cincinnati, who were shopping this guy allegedly last year. Go get a Jonathan India. That gives you some options. You could shift Biggio over to third.
Now
maybe India could play
now
third.
We're back to thinking these guys are competent at what they do. We'll see.
That's my point.
To me, time and time again, they're not. So we'll see.
Here's the one credit we'll give them. They have made moves and made trades. They've done that in the past. That's how Chapman ended up here in the first place, and Simeon and other guys like that.
Yeah, Barsh.
You better do it again, because I don't want to hear about how we were in on Ohtani, and we would have been in on Soto, and they won't get Bellinger either, and we were in on him. You had better go out and use this financial clout to actually improve this team. Because Vlad proved to us last year, and Bo to a degree, certainly defensively, they cannot do it on their own. No one can. You need a team around you.
Add some significant players to be able to.
They have holes, dude. Center field and or left field. Springer will go back to right, and you can move Varsho around. But center or left field, big hole. This is a great defensive team last year. Who's playing second base? Is it Biggio? Is it a guy like Jonathan India that you could get via trade? Did one of them shift over to third? Who's playing third? The bullpen, Genesis Cabrera is gone. I mean,
I wonder if they actually, we'll never know, but I'd love to know if if Shapiro and Atkins actually thought Ohtani was coming. You know what I mean? They'll never say.
They had to have. When you're ponying up that kind of money, you have to think he really could be coming. And again, if that was the case, I don't blame them for not getting him. We're disappointed. Dude, could you imagine? I love Shohei Ohtani. He's like nothing I've ever seen before.
Signing in Canadian sports history.
No question.
Not even close.
No question.
Yeah.
There's nothing even in the same stratosphere as a guy that's this good of a pitcher and hitter.
Yeah.
So I don't blame it, but I will be, I'm still mad about the way the season ended and the failures of this team.
Yeah.
I will be even more angry if they don't go and fill this lineup out, dude. Go ahead.
When Nightingale tweeted he wasn't on the plane, did you think at that point they're out? Because I did.
Yeah.
I was like, they're out. If he's not coming here, they're not in it. And then the next day, my daughter Amanda texted me, and all she said was Dodgers. And I'm like,
so what's really funny about that, I'll share a story with you. I was finishing my Christmas shopping on Saturday at a mall in Kitchener, and I'm done, and I'm waiting in a coffee shop for Kate to come back from whatever she was doing and meet me, get a coffee and leave. Yeah. And the news drops. I'm in line with 6 or 7 other dudes who all had Blue Jays hats on. Yeah. All of our phones are going off, and we all collectively looked up and met eyes and were like, no. It was the saddest coffee line ever. And what was really funny is we all just start chatting in this line in the coffee shop. And, we get up to the front, and the barista's that was like watching an episode of Sports Center right here in the coffee shop. We were having a round table panel in the coffee shop.
Yeah,
it was just so devastating.
Who were interested in what was going on was incredible. It really was.
We all allowed ourselves to get sucked in. How about those? Yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about that.
I didn't have a bet on the Ranger game last night, but that's okay.
The Tuesday Ranger game. I saw a stat that they scored 4 goals on the Rangers in the first period for the first time since 1944.
Yeah, well, you don't score many times 4 goals in the first period. Any team.
Well, especially against the Rangers this year. They're arguably the best team in the East.
Shesterkin's not who he was 2 years ago. That's for sure.
He's still pretty good. Better than any of the goalies that the Leafs are employing. That's for sure. Let's talk about that, though, because, recently, obviously, Joseph Woll, just a brutal injury. This team is still poorly constructed, and they have no luck. I felt gutted for him. He stole 2 points for the Leafs against the Sens the other day, and I felt gutted for him when he got hurt. It's just awful.
Probably his best game as a pro.
He single-handedly, dude, he was insane. He robbed Vladimir Tarasenko 3 times.
Twice, like unbelievably. But when you say they're not constructed very well, they continue to win with 3 of their defensemen out, and they're probably number 1 goalie out. They continue to win. They've only lost 6 games in regulation. They're only 4 points behind the Bruins. Like, it's crazy how they continue to win. And like, not a lot of Leaf fans, including myself, think they're playing that well. I think in the last 3 or 4 games, they played a lot better. You know why? Because it actually looks like they are putting out an effort, and they're working. And I haven't been able to say that for the first part of this season. They actually look like they're putting out an effort right now, and it's paying off.
Yeah, and their best guys are playing. Like, Matthews is right back on a heater.
Yeah,
he's a freak right now.
He's
21 goals in 26 games. He's been unbelievable. He's working hard. Yes. And I think the reason that people say, even though that they are banking their points, right? They have the second fewest regulation wins. However, they have the second fewest regulation losses.
Crazy. Isn't that crazy? It's
the most Leafy thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Every time someone says they've only won 7 games or whatever in regulation, I go, yeah, they've only lost 6 games too. Compare that to the rest of the teams. Compare it.
It's like, it's just such a Leafs. As Steve Dangle would tweet, it's the leafiest thing ever. Yeah. And it's very strange. But I think the reason that people continue to say, and I'm on that train as well, that they're not constructed well, even though that they are banking these points, is because we all know it just doesn't matter what they do in the regular season anymore. Yeah. We've seen this ship before, and it sinks in April. And I need.
We'll see. First of all, they're not going to be the same as they are now. And
God, I hope not.
Guys like Domi and Bertuzzi, who they added, are really starting to play well.
Bertuzzi's been playing in very well.
Very well.
And Domi's improved.
And both of those guys have proved in the past they can play in the playoffs. They show up. So
yes.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But as you said, it doesn't matter. It totally doesn't matter. Just make the playoffs, and that's your first thing you got to do.
Yeah, get in.
Get in, and then go from there.
That's what I'll say. I know you don't like it when I do this, but the most Leafy thing ever, I think, would be for a team like this to be getting bagged on for how they're constructed and then win the cup. Where it seems like this year, so many fewer and less of the fan base is going, yeah, they can win. That's when it will happen. When everybody's going, nah, here's the first round. We're playing Tampa. Let's say we're gonna lose in 5, and then that's when they go on the tear. When the pessimism is at its highest, because that's exactly what my Caps did. A bunch of guys left the team, a bunch of rookies, their windows closed, it's over. All of a sudden they won. Sports is, not everybody can be the Patriots and just go to the AFC Championship game every year. Well,
and I'm a firm believer now, you have to bottom out to be able to get really good. And the Leafs did that. And I look around the league and I see the Montreal Canadiens, they're going to probably, finish like, I don't know, probably 15 points out of the playoffs again. Not bad enough to get the number 1 pick and not good enough to make the playoff. Again, year after year, same story in Montreal.
Well, and my God, they got to hope that Slavkovsky kid, who looks a little better of late, actually pans out. Because he was their number 1 pick. And
yeah. And
that kid better be a star.
Who's Seattle? Who was the number 1 projected guy? Seattle got him.
Yeah, Shane Wright.
Yeah.
Who's struggling to get his toe in.
For sure.
Yeah. 100%. And maybe someday we'll look back on that draft as a draft that was more about the Logan Cooleys of the world. And you just never know. Number 1. It's not always a guarantee. Austin Matthews isn't always there. Sidney Crosby's not always there.
Well, there's the other story. That's a big story developing too. Is what's Mr. Dubas going to do in Pittsburgh, because they are not a very good hockey team right now. They're
awful, and the power play.
They're old. They have those 4, Letang and Carlson and Crosby,
Sid and Gino
and
Gensel.
What do you do with those guys? Do you trade one of them? Do you I think Mr. Dubas is in for a rough ride in the next few years in Pittsburgh. That's for sure.
Well, we know this. They have a bare prospect cupboard. I like the kid they took last year. I like that Jaeger kid. But I mean, outside of that, I would say they have the worst farm system in the NHL.
Well, and you don't get Carlson if you're gonna, you know what I mean? Like they thought they were gonna make a run this year.
And they still could doubt.
Oh, for sure.
Doubt Sidney Crosby at your peril if we've learned anything. However, it's not looking good. And you know this, Clarkey. Before we take another quick break and go to our couch potatoes, you know this. The second things start looking dicey in Pittsburgh, who's the first name that they're willing to run out of town? It's Gino.
Mm-hmm.
It's Malkin every single time. Like, oh, well, they've got to trade Malkin. They were doing it right before they won the back-to-back cups, where they stubbed their toe against the Flyers in the playoffs a couple times. Oh, got to trade Gino. Are any of those guys even willing to go anywhere? Certainly, probably not Sid. So, is Gino willing to go somewhere else? Is Letang willing to go somewhere else? Is Carlson, after being traded there and wanting to go there? I don't know. Do you start farming out younger guys like Jake Gensel, who's a really good player? He'd fetch you. I actually think Jake Gensel might fetch you potentially more than Malkin would right now, just based on age. There are some, man, if it's not this year, next year, there's some big decisions coming down the pipe. Yeah. For the Pittsburgh Penguins, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe they can have Paul Marner.
Them.
Maybe they can get Paul Marner out of the Leafs. Because that was a typical reaction from a guy who I've seen videos about and I've heard a lot about. The Leafs tie it up with 6 seconds to go, and Mitch didn't score the goal, and he didn't look happy. That should tell you.
Right, yeah, because they had the dad's trip. Yeah.
So they're showing John Tavares, his dad, up there in the box, and everyone's cheering except Paul Marner because Mitch didn't score the goal. I'm telling you, that's a thing.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of time for Paul.
No, but if it trickles,
and I'm not saying, and I feel bad saying that about anybody I've never met. I've never met Paul.
But you've seen.
But we've all seen the news video from years ago, but also when I hear from one or two people that a person's not a very good dude, I go, okay, well, when I hear it from 10 plus people, that's when I start going, okay, maybe this guy is,
eyes open. Yeah. Anyway,
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, we'll take a quick break when we come back.
Trade him to Pittsburgh. That's what I'm saying.
Well, you never know. We'll come back with our couch potatoes of the week, brought to you by Conway Furniture, next here on Instigating. Back to wrap things up here on Instigating, brought to you by our friends at Conway Furniture, Highway 86, east end of Listowel. Our friends at Larry Hudson Chevrolet Buick GMC and the Listowel Squash Courts. Really quick before we get into the Conway Furniture Couch Potatoes of the week, what's going on? We're coming up on Christmas here. Larry Hudson, the deals are still hot.
The deals are still hot. Are you looking for a Christmas present for that one special person? It's a great time. This is the week right now coming up to get a purchase in before Christmas. So if you're looking at doing that, come on in. We have large SUVs. We have 23s that we're clearing out. We have trucks at 0% financing, select few, but we do have some. So come on in, get that last minute Christmas gift. It'll go over great. I'll even buy you a bow to put on it.
Let's go.
Done it before. I'll buy a big
service.
Bow. We'll smack it on the windshield. So yeah, lots of things going on at Larry Hudson's. Hudson's has it, and the deals are
hot. They're hot, ladies and gentlemen. Larry Hudson's. They're always hot over there. Let me tell you what. The couch potato. I'm going to make you a happy man this week, but I hijacked it last week. We've been letting you do it first. Last week I hijacked it. And this week you're going to go first again, but I'm going to make you a happy guy with mine. But first, I'd like for you to go.
I have 3 couch potato possibilities that I've been mulling over in my mind.
Okay.
And producer Adam, I'm calling an audible here at the last minute. On Monday night, when the Leafs were in Long Island to play the Islanders, the start of the game, was another disaster for the anthem singer. And I just don't understand how teams can let an anthem singer who doesn't know the words to a song sing the anthem. So that was one of my possible couch.
It's not a hard song to sing.
It's not. And when you make up a verse, she basically skipped a verse, made it up later, and sang it probably in under a minute, which is pretty quick for a national anthem. Anyway, I don't know her name. Doesn't matter. John Tavares, who you decided to put in the negative couch potato category a week ago.
Yeah, I did.
Scored his 1,000th point in the National Hockey League, only the 98th player to do it. He's not the reason this team is struggling with salary cap. It's another guy. He is an unbelievable hockey player, continues to perform at a high level, and the Leafs would not be where they are without John Tavares. He's another guy. However,
where are they? Go ahead.
They're near the top of the league. Just stop. He scored a winning goal in the playoffs last year to advance to the second round.
Yes, he did.
So my couch potato is going to go back to last Friday. And just all the Blue Jay fans in the world who were probably sitting on the couch if they could have, refreshing Twitter, following a plane on Flight Tracker. It was an unbelievable day, as we mentioned with Rob Longley, a day I don't think you or I will ever forget as long as we're on this earth. I don't remember anything even close to it. The excitement level from everyone involved was unbelievable.
It was palpable, man.
It was I honestly was really thinking it was happening, but on the other hand, I was trying to egg you on in our
I liked it. I welcomed it. My heart was racing on the way to the rink.
Oh yeah, it was unreal. I thought it was.
I had the radio on. I thought any second, I could hear something that's going to change our lives.
Exactly. We heard about a press conference at 6:00. Landed at 4:30 in a presser at 6. Well, where's the presser going to be at the airport? We saw video of him walking through some airport. Instantly, someone had that ready, right? Someone had that ready.
It was years old.
As soon as he landed, or the plane landed, he was going to tweet that out, and he did. Anyway, all the Blue Jay fans, you are my couch potatoes. I feel sorry for us. It was not a fun ending to a very exciting Friday.
Yeah. Absolutely, I agree. That's a good one. Okay, now as I promised, I'm going to make you a happy guy here because you brought it up last week. I took a shot at your captain. Mm-hmm. I didn't like it, and again, I reiterated in that clip that this was not all his fault, but it still was a bad look. And because they've never won anything outside of one playoff round, hooray! That they deserve their criticism until they show us that their stripes are different. Now, having said that, I'm going to go the other way. And John Tavares is my couch potato, in a very good way. Congratulations! It's 1,000 points. Come on here, and I actually have a dual couch potato. I'd like to get both recliners out on the love seat here, and you can find those with our friends at Conway Furniture, by the way.
HST.
One side of it is positive. Let's kick back, and that's John Tavares, 98th player you mentioned ever to hit 1,000 points. There's been over 7,600 NHL players all time. That's 1.2% of players that have ever hit 1,000. It's incredible. What an accomplishment. Keep in mind, too, he's the all-time record holder in the OHL for goals scored. He broke Wayne Gretzky's record in the Ontario Hockey League. This guy's been a consistently good offensive player for his entire career, no matter what level, and congratulations are due. My other side of the couch, though, and I'm not sorry. These people are losers, and they're New York Islanders fans. I'm sorry. I understand. You're mad he left. I get it. But I saw a tweet from a Leaf fan earlier today that I actually really enjoyed. Back when Sundin's contract was running out, there was a rumored deal on the table where they were going to trade Sundin to Vancouver because he wanted to play with the Sedins, and they were going to get Kessler back and all this other stuff. He declined the trade and then signed there in the offseason anyway. But when Max came back to Toronto that first time, remember he scored the shootout winner? Everybody applauded him. He's Matt Sundin, and he gave a lot to the organization, just like Tavares did. And I understand, we're mad that he left and the way he left, and blah, blah. I get it. When a guy scores 1,000 points, you applaud them. When Ovi hit 800 last year in Chicago, it was in Chicago he hit 800. The whole stadium, United Center, was chanting Ovi. You show respect to legends of the game.
I don't have a problem with them booing him during the play, and I think it's funny.
No, but when you get 1,000,
when you do that, it's
come on. It's so ridiculous.
I will say though, I did see quite a few fans clapping. But yes, it was the same amount, giving the Trudeau salute and flipping the bird and booing at the same time. So it was quite a mix.
My point is that I understand, Islanders, that the fans are upset. I get it. I'm not saying you ever have to be supportive of the guy. I understand. But 1,000 points in your boot, come on, be a little classy. I understand people are probably calling me a high horse rider here. I get it. But I kind of agree with what Sean Avery said a bunch of years ago there. You guys are losers. You have little brother syndrome. Stop being losers. Wipe the snot off your nose. Dry your tears already and get over it.
So, Ryan, I've never gotten into
couch potato.
I've got into one argument on Twitter with someone once, and it was the first day game back in the island, and
they were throwing snakes.
Mike Zeisberger of the Toronto Sun tweeted something, and an Islander fan jumped in saying how they're much better than Leaf fans and blah 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 blah. And I said something about, you can't even fill the Nassau Coliseum with fans. How can you say they're better? And his point, he's trying to convince himself that was okay because the arena was smaller. And I'm like, you can't fill the smaller arena. That's a problem when you can't fill a small arena. Anyway, that was the one time where I went back and forth with a guy about 10 times.
When they were remember they were throwing plastic snakes on the ice and everything. It's like, all right,
Yeah, I know. And then the chant, at least the chant has stopped. We don't need you. Has
so
stopped.
Far.
It wasn't there on Monday night because they probably realized they probably could use them.
Yeah, well, and regardless of all that, I just didn't like that he scored 1,000 and they were booing. Just get over yourself for a second. They'd be upset if someone on their team did it and they didn't get applauded. Come on, this is a joke. All right, that's our Couch Potatoes, brought to you by our friends at Conway Furniture. Hey, all the prices you see on stuff in there include HST and delivery. All right, so there's no fooling around with our friends down at Conway Furniture. Go see them, Highway 86, east end of Listowel. That's it for the show. Thanks to our buddy Rob Longley. Go ahead.
Is this our last show of the year, or what's going on?
No, we got one more.
Oh, we got one more
before we will be taking a 2-week holiday break. We need a break around here. All right.
Yeah.
We will be taking a break, but we got one more. We got one more. Thanks to our friend Rob Longley, beat reporter for the Toronto Sun, following the Blue Jays, as always, for his great work. And we appreciate our sponsors, Conway Furniture, our friends at Larry Hudson, Chevrolet Buick GMC. Deals are hot. And, of course, the Listowel Squash Courts. We'll be back next week. Oh, remember, watch us Friday nights at 8. Sunday nights at 9, our friends on Whiteman TV. That's channel 6 for Whiteman subscribers. Producer Adam, you thought I forgot for a second, didn't you? I did not. Remember, you can also follow us on social media at Instigating Pod, and the show debuts on our YouTube channel Friday nights at 9 p.m. We'll be back next week, one last week before the holidays, here on Instigating.